Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Crow, and I'm the Financial Education Specialist here at Summit Credit Union. It is my absolute pleasure to be able to chat with you today about a brand new session that we have to share with you information about the new way that teens and tweens are carrying cash. And these are really great smart money moves for the savvy parent. So thank you so much for joining me today. I did want to start off by just saying that at Summit, we believe in financial success and we believe that that happens together, whether it's through our financial coaching or contacting our call center through the app or doing our chats or doing virtual appointments or stopping in the branch. We just wanted to say that we're here for you. And the education that we provide in this session is just one of those tools. Always remember, you can go to our website at summitcreditunion.com go to the Learn section, and you can find so many more tips, tools, advice, and recorded webinars. So let's jump in our time together that we have today. It's going to be about a 25 to 30-minute session, and I just wanted to let you know that the chat is open. Feel free to pop some questions in there along the way. I will try to answer them. If not, I will email you afterwards with an answer. So thank you so much. All right, there's a couple of things that I'm really excited to share with you today that we've prepared for you through our financial empowerment department. The number one thing I wanted to share with you today is how teens and tweens are actually navigating the world digitally today. It's not the same thing that we all had when we were little, where we had lots of cash in our hand and we used coins. In fact, the penny is no longer in existence. And it's just different. It's all digital. And the more that we know about being able to utilize digital services, the better we're going to be, because we can help our kids move along that path, hopefully just like our parents did in some way or shape or form. So we're going to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of different digital tools. I'm also going to give you some information towards the back end of the session. And again, it's going to be about a 25, 30-minute session on how to support your teens' money learning early. And I have to tell you, I have a 22-year-old and I've been in this business for almost 30 years. And so my daughter has really grown up through each of the stages of money. And I remember having her first savings account. I couldn't wait to get that Social Security number in the mail, or however we'd gotten it at that point, to open up her first savings account, and then guiding her to have her first checking account and debit card. Of course, she didn't order checks because she never wrote one, or needed to write one like we all did when we were little. So it's been really a journey, and I'm going to share some of the tips, tools, and advice that I have learned, and some of the tips, tools, and things that Summit can help you with along the way. So one of the things we wanted to really talk about today was that, as a parent in this digital world, we are frequently sending money to our kids in a variety of different ways. It can be preloaded funds onto a gift card. It can be giving them actual cash if we remember to stop by a financial institution to be able to grab cash, or maybe an ATM. Those kids are using preloaded gift cards from either grandma, grandpa, or maybe even that's how we're having those 10 to 13-year-olds be able to spend cash when we don't have cash to give them. And then, of course, for those of you who, are on social media, or looking at some of the television commercials, there are some really popular fintechs out there. A fintech is a financial institution that does not have a brick and mortar building. They are really into providing people financial services through apps and other digital ways. And you might have heard some of these companies. They are, Cash App, Venmo, Zelle is actually embedded in your online banking. And then also maybe some of you have heard of Greenlight. That seems to be the one that I've heard of quite a bit. And so it really is one of those things where we have so many choices now as a parent on how we help our kids learn about money, how we help them learn, and how we help them grow. Now, one of the biggest things that we're asked at the credit union is, how early is too early to give my kid a debit card? And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we move forward. But it's one of those things where I think a lot of us are like, can we just give them their own checking account, their own savings account, their own debit card? Because I don't really want them using my credit card when they're going different places. Maybe they're doing a school outing, all those different things. Maybe they're off with their friends, or they are somebody else is driving them somewhere and they're stopping to get food or snacks. So it really is one of those things where our kids are so much more mobile than they were before. And how are we getting cash in their hand to make the transactions and purchases that they need to do when they're away from us? And so that's why we wanted to create this session today. We wanted to talk a little bit about all the different things that you could potentially do and give you a little bit of education about number 4 on the slide, which is student-based accounts and how you as a parent can have control over that, just like you would in some of these fintech companies. Your financial institution, including Summit, have solutions very similar to those fintech companies. You just have to start asking the questions. So what we're going to do is one of the things I wanted to set a little bit of a baseline on is when our teens and tweens are starting to earn money. And it's one of those things where, I don't know about you, but my kid, she was weeding people's gardens. She didn't walk dogs or anything like that. But she was mowing somebody's lawn. She was doing a lot of different things. And then, she really was getting a lot of cash at that point from our neighbors and our friends for doing work. But every once in a while, they would be like, do you have this? Do you have Zelle? Can I just Venmo you? And a lot of these fintech companies, they have restrictions, age restrictions on when you can actually have these types of accounts set up on a young person's phone. So it's important to understand that in this digital world where we're using less cash and adults who want to pay your kid for babysitting services, things like that. My daughter did a lot of babysitting services. It's important to understand, hey, how are we taking in that cash as a kid? How is a parent managing where that cash goes? And one thing when my daughter was babysitting, she would get checks from people because they didn't have cash, but they happened to have their checkbook at home. And so, nowadays we can just use the phone. I can't, just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. We can use our digital app, our online banking digital app, to be able to take a picture of the check and be able to deposit it into our savings or our checking account really, really easy. Even a couple of years ago when my daughter was doing that, when she was 12, 13 years old and somebody would hand her a check, I was still going to the credit union and depositing that check for her. So it's come a long way just in these last couple of years. And that's where we can really guide and teach our kids where the money should go, whether that goes into a savings account, whether that goes into a piggy bank in their bedroom, whether it goes into their wallet, all of those types of things. They are really easy and short conversations that we can do to guide our kids on how they're managing money and what they are doing with this money and what our expectation is as a family that they do with that money. I'll be talking a little bit more about that. But I just wanted to say too that, whatever your kid is doing, however they're getting cash, have conversations with them. Ask them, how are they getting the cash from the neighbor, or are they getting a request to be able to use some sort of online service, and maybe the kid just doesn't know what that is, and maybe it'd be more convenient for them to start having that set up. It might be an option where they could use Zelle, where the neighbor also has Zelle inside an online banking financial institution, and they could transfer the money to you as a parent, and then you could put it in the kid's account. There's a lot of different things that can go on. So just start asking questions, thinking about where that money is going, and then where you want to be able to have that money go once it gets into your kids' hands. Now, once they get that first job, and I kind of talked about, hey, is it one of those things where they are just getting cash? Are they getting checks they need to mobile deposit? But at some point, we're setting themselves up into this kind of foundation of the fact that at some point when they have a real employer with direct deposit, they are going to need a checking account. They're going to need that account number. They're going to need that routing number. It would be really great if we can have our kids be set up for success when they're talking to that human resources person or that manager and they're given that paperwork where they have to write down their account number and the routing number. Being able to have that already so that we're not scrambling when the kids get their first job. Or here's what happens nowadays is if you don't have a checking account with a routing number and that account number, the human resources department is going to be offering a pay card. And if you haven't heard about a pay card, it is where the paycheck is directly deposited onto this pay card, but it's not attached to a savings account in most cases. In some cases, this pay card may have fees for different types of transactions on it, especially those ATM fees. So it's really important that if our kids, by a chance that their employer doesn't do direct deposit and they only do pay cards, which I've heard is becoming interestingly a thing for some smaller places. that we are asking enough questions, that we're looking at the fine print, and that we're understanding any fees that we might be charged. A lot of these fintech companies, a lot of these apps you're seeing, they have fees and other things that you should be aware of, just like with a financial institution when you have an overdraft fee or, a monthly fee. But most student checking accounts, which is what I recommend for a teen, because they have no fees. They have protections in place to avoid overdrafts. You can do things like setting alerts on your phone. All of those things are really important for us to have and to understand. And I know that kids, they want a debit card. They want to be able to put some sort of plastic card in their digital wallet on their phone, so they don't have to carry a wallet, they don't have to carry a purse, they just have it on their phone. Well, here's a reminder, not all places are tap and pay, but they just want that debit card attached to their phone. And there's ways to be able to do that, especially at financial institutions. And that's kind of why we wanted to have a conversation with you today, is because financial institutions can offer the same things that you want and hear about with these fintech companies. And so it's important to investigate what you currently have at your current financial institution and see if the things that they offer will solve the problem or the situation that you and your child are in when it comes to accessing money and being able to put it in places for the future. Where your kids' money kind of has a home is going to be really important. What we're seeing nowadays is that people are keeping balances on these fintech products, and they're not earning interest, and they're not split in a couple of different ways to save for a couple of different things. I know when my daughter was growing up, she used the sub account system that we have at Summit. They're mini account numbers underneath her main account number. She would have her account number, her checking account, and a couple of savings accounts. One was her car fund because she wanted to buy a car. One was her college fund. One was an account for entertainment. And so she kind of had things split up. And that was really important for her to do. When you have these pay cards, when you have the apps, it's really hard to be able to do those types of things. And what's great about working with a financial institution when a child gets their first job, and especially when you're joint on that savings account, on that checking account, there are certain things that you can have in place. And what's great about that is that you can set up alerts on their account so that you know when their paycheck has come in, or you know that they have a lower balance in their account due to spending and different things like that. You can look at their e-statements, you can look at their transactions, because at Summit, whatever you are joint on, you're going to see in your online banking. And so that's going to be a really important thing for you to be able to track those types of things, for you to see those types of things. And it's going to set you up for success for the conversations and the tips, tools, and advice I'm going to give you in just a few minutes. So I wanted to just have this slide because it was so important to understand that, kids kind of move from that cash, babysitting, transferring money back and forth. Maybe you're giving them your credit card to use for certain things. Then they get their first job. They're going to need that checking account. But I did want to say that Summit has a checking account. It's called a balance account, where a kid can get a debit card at a younger age. And so it's important that if that's interesting to you, that you contact one of our financial service representatives, talk to them about what you'd like to do, and if that is a good fit for you and your family. Again, when before they even get that first job and they need that account and routing number, they may want that debit card because of their on the move so many more ways without us than we did when we were growing up, and we had cash in our pockets, and they have the tap and pay. So it's just important to think about all those different options. And so we recommend that when it's time for your family to have that conversation with us, whether it's through our contact center or stopping in our branch, because we really do believe that having a bank account is the foundation to having so many more things. A lot of times it was like, hey, when you have a bank account, a savings account, and a checking account, it really gives you one central place for you to have your money. It's not scattered all over the place, right? You don't have large balances inside these fintech apps. It's a great way to be able to receive, to store money, to have it give a home, and for you to track things, and for parental controls, because obviously if you're joint on the account, you can see what's going on. That checking account with a debit card for a teen or even a tween is going to be really important. And I know that tweens, that 10 to 13-year-old age group, they're not writing checks. Even teens are not writing checks. And even when you get into college, you're not writing a check for rent anymore. My daughter is actually having it directly taken out of her account through an ACH. So the checking account term is a little weird, but it really is that they want access to that debit card. They want to be able to use that in their digital wallet. And that tracking system that we have set up so that you can see that as a parent is a really strong way for you to reinforce the education that you want and to help them do a lot of different things. Um, because building skills before direct deposit is even a thing with that first job, helping them practice is really important. Now, I want to tell you this story. I was watching something, and the actor Jack Black, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's a comedian. He was on one of the late night talk shows. Well, he was talking about how he put his credit card on one of the gaming system platforms for his son to do gaming. And he was kind of being like, I had no idea, my son was playing this game. He was buying outfits and things for monsters. And, every outfit costs 99 cents. Or every extra thing that you get up when you go to another level costs something, right? Well, come to find out, Jack Black had like $3,000 in charges from this company on his personal credit card. And so that's really one of those things where maybe we can look to see the type of safeguards that we have set up for kids. We can go into our online app, we can set some different controls, we can in a couple of different categories: restaurant, gas, groceries, entertainment, set spending limits now in financial institution accounts. So, really, financial institutions have come a long way for us to be able to avoid situations like the actor Jack Black, where he was putting his own personal line of credit out on that credit card. We can use debit cards in some sort of situation, especially when those debit cards have really low dollar amounts on them. Of course, you need to be paying attention to fraud, and we have a whole fraud section on our website as well. But again, when those safeguards are put in place at the financial institution, that also will stop fraud. We have email alerts, we have text alerts, and different things like that. So it's really important to be up on all of the different tips and tools that when you are setting your child up to be able to have a digital wallet, to be able to have a debit card, and not being reliant upon your personal finances and your lines of credit or your debit card, it gives them a different sense of setting them up for it being that foundation of what they're going to need when they have direct deposit, when they have their own job. And then later on, the financial institution, when they're ready for a loan, will be able to see how well they have managed their accounts and all of those types of things. So it's really an important thing to be thinking about how we want to be able to safeguard those kids' accounts. We want to put some parental controls on those accounts, and more financial institutions, including Summit, have those things available. It's just giving us a call and finding out which options are the best ones for you. Um, and it's also one of these things where I've been kind of leading into the idea of, teachable moments when it comes to parents. And a couple of different things that I've been thinking of that I wanted to share with you was everyday spending creates a natural learning moment. Things I used to tell my daughter all the time was, do you have enough money for that? Or if you spend this, think about this and this and this that's going to be happening. Maybe we were going on a trip and maybe we were going to go to the Mall of America. And so, do you have enough money for the Mall of America in 6 weeks if you spend this and this right now? I appreciate that she used to tell me, I'm just going to go to the thrift store. Yep, things are going to be more affordable. I think that's fantastic. But again, what are the choices and what won't you be able to do later? And I would look at her checking account. I could see her transactions. I could see how much money she was spending in high school, going out to lunch because they had an open campus. And I would have those conversations with her. I'd be like, hey, you spent like this much money this week. What happened? And she's like, the lunch menu just wasn't great. And I'm like, okay, well, next month you really can't do that because you're spending your paycheck. And one going to the local, deli is how many hours of your pay at your part-time job. So kind of equating it to the lessons that we think of, right? And these low pressure conversations aren't saying like, hey, you shouldn't have done that. It's really talking to them about how their choices impact their money in the future. Another thing that I wanted to just say to you is we have three tips that I wanted to share. Number one is watch account balances and set up alerts. Okay. Because you're going to be joint on that account with your child, you are going to be able to see that in your online banking. You are going to be able to set up email alerts, text alerts, and all of those types of things. I also want to make sure that you are watching those account balances, like I said, that I did with my daughter, and just having those natural conversations. And then to know the family rules. When I grew up, I had to split my check in half. Half went to a college account, half I got to spend. Now, this we're talking about, I think I made $35 every 2 weeks or something. It wasn't a lot of money. And for even my daughter, working part-time, 15, 20 hours, whatever that might have been, we had rules on what she needed to spend her money on. You could have this much for spending money, this much went in a college account, this much went into a car account, this much went into a whatever vacation souvenir account. So know the family rules, have those conversations with your child about what those rules are. And then the third one, I really liked this one. We always say kind of create a budget. Well, budget's really scary for kids. How about a saving and spending plan? What are you spending your money on? What can you do every couple of weeks or every week or whatever that is? And then what are you saving for? Helping them understand saving and then potentially even getting them into, an account that's going to be earning them some interest moving forward. So create that budget based on the rules, talk about the rules, and also watch those account balances and set up alerts. That's going to be really, really important. As we're kind of winding down, I just wanted to recap again. This is a really short session. I wanted to leave just a couple minutes for any Q&A if we had them. But we really talked about how these fintechs, these apps that are out there are providing you a service to be able to, give your kids, even young middle school kids, an opportunity to be able to use and pay for things when they're not with you, right? Well, more and more financial institutions, including Summit, are offering services that are very close to this. And fintechs, I don't think I told you this, but fintechs can actually have like a $5 to $20 a month fee associated with them. That's really expensive. And so you really want to watch and see, what can you get here at Summit? What can you do to help your child start learning about finances early? And again, this is not meant to be like, hey, you need to do this today. This is something that every single family needs to talk about for your own personal financial journey and what you have going on in your finances and when you would like to potentially have your child set up with these types of things. Again, we were being asked, when do I start doing this? When can I do this? And what types of things are available? And so that's why we wanted to do this session today, because we know that every day our kids are spending money. Typically, it is electronic versus cash. And every time they do that, there is a learning moment in that. It's not our way that we grew up, and it's definitely not our grandparents' way of when we grew up. But we want to be here to support you in any possible way that we can. We want to give you some guidance, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do just this brief session to kind of talk a little bit about that. So as I put up our last slide, it just gives us the opportunity to, if you want to connect with somebody to talk about what the options are, is it a good fit? Is it even the right time based on what you are seeing and feeling? Take that QR code and you'll go directly to an email that will we can set you up with a financial coach if you'd like one at a branch near you. You can always email Summit Credit Union at Summit Financial Education at summitcreditunion.com. But I'm just going to look to see if we have any questions. Oh, this is a really great one. How do you teach how much you should spend each month and control the monthly spending amount? Inside online banking, as a parent, you can actually set parental controls in a couple of different categories, which is fantastic. I love that. And really, when you want to teach how much you should spend each month, it's based on your family. It's based on what they are typically doing as a kid. Are they going out to lunch if they're a high school student? Are they going with their friends to get pizza and ice cream? Are they, just shopping? Where are they? What are they doing? And how much are they spending? Look back a month. How did they spend their cash? What did they put on your credit card? And start having a conversation. Also, I always like to look at the calendar. What do you have coming up where they might spend money? What do the kids have coming up where they might be spending money, and then plan that way, and then set limits. Kids might want to spend $20 on lunch, right? They don't need to spend $20 on lunch. Maybe you set the limit that says, hey, you know what, you don't spend more than $12 on lunch. It's setting those types of caps. Hopefully that's answered your question. If not, email me at the email. What are your thoughts on adding a teenager to an authorized user on your credit card? I think that's a positive thing. I think that you should absolutely talk to the financial institution to determine how you would do that. What we want to make sure that you do and that you understand is that they need to be 18 for one. And number two, we want to make sure that it's actually going to build their credit. So at times, you want to think about this. Do you want to have them get their own credit card where they're primary on it and maybe you're joint, or do you want to make them as an authorized user? And so understanding those types of things, again, I think that that's a personal choice for your family, but there's a lot of different options in that too. And we do have a variety of different things available for those 18-year-olds who do need their first credit card, and we can definitely chat with you on that. So again, I think building credit for them, I'm thinking that that's what this question is all about, is a fantastic idea. And it's one of those things where if we just figure out the best way to do that, then you can build your child a successful life and credit. So those are all the questions that I see in our chat. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time today. I hope that I've given you some clarity on the difference between, again, all of the fintechs that you see out there, the options that you might have at Summit or a financial institution that you're currently doing business with. I hope that we've cleared up that, kids are very wanting that debit card with that digital component inside their wallet. And we just need to kind of figure out the best way to give it to them. And based on our family, is it the right choice for me at this time? So I just want to say thank you so much. And this session was recorded. If you would like a copy of it, please let me know and I can send that out to you. And thank you so much for your time today.